What's up, guys? Welcome back to Product Parade, where we review products, talk to product founders and leaders. And today, that is exactly what we are going to be doing. Vikram Ramkumar is the co-founder and CTO at Cling. I was lucky enough to work with Vikram way back in the day when both of us were just starting out our careers. He was a new developer, I was a new product manager, and it's been incredible to follow his journey. Today, Vikram has a wealth of knowledge to share about how and when to leave your full-time job if you want to do your own startup, some of the challenges that you run into, and what technical co-founders are actually looking for in non-technical founders. So he's going to share his entire story of Cling, and it's very much a work in progress story. So I'm so grateful that he was able to come on to the show today. And with that, let's jump into the interview.
Thanks again, brother, for coming onto the show. I'm super stoked to have you. And for everyone that's new, which will be everybody listening, um, Vikram and I go way back. Like I was getting my very, very first start in tech with Vic, and we were working out of an apartment in Manhattan, and we had free access to raid the fridge as much as we wanted. But we were both kind of getting our chops and our bearings. Vikram from the technical side, but I guess Vic, it might be best. Why don't you give a quick background on yourself and how you got into tech?
Hey, I'm Vikram. I'm a CTO of my own startup at this point, which is a glorified term. But I've been working in startups for about 6 to 8 years now, and it's been a very bumpy ride, and that's part of what makes it so awesome. I met Dallin and I have met years ago, and it's funny, you've worked at so many different companies. I feel like I've worked only at three in that duration, I think. And we've both learned a whole lot about product in that time frame, either directly or in my case, indirectly, just purely being inquisitive and just grabbing onto every little source of information you can and trying to piece it all together to see how a company is really built.
So you said it's been a bumpy ride, and I have actually since say I worked at AccuWeather, Inside Tracker, and now I just am starting a new position. But that's kind of it. But I know you've done a lot too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Cling and what it is, how you had the idea, how you got started, and kind of the story until now?
At Cling, we're trying to build a training community for rock climbers today. And I've been rock climbing for as long as I've been in software engineering and in my professional career. When we all went into lockdown, I moved from California to Connecticut because my wife had gotten a recent job in Connecticut. Um, and I lost a lot of my community in rock climbing, and I was already in search of a community, a new community to build. The thing with rock climbing is it's a very weird niche sport today. It's growing a lot. The population size of rock climbing is actually growing past what most people would assume. Um, there's about 8 to 10 million climbers in the United States today, and there are hundreds of gyms from coast to coast that cater to rock climbing, sometimes the size of city blocks in Manhattan. As I saw these things happen, saw a lot of new people coming in, and the character of rock climbing was changing. So, for example, back in the 80s or 90s, the way you would get introduced to rock climbing is you're outdoors, you're on some mountainous place, you walk up to some people living out of vans or, just dirty looking, tough, strong people, and they're doing something crazy. And they'd be like, yeah, get on this rope, we'll just put you on the rock. And you would probably be in, boots or somebody else's shoes or something like that. And you'd basically get introduced in a very strange way. So the amount of people that were coming in was fairly smaller. And then as the sport has grown and people have been watching movies about rock climbing and being like, that's crazy. They start being inquisitive about, hey, I should go check out the local climbing gym. What is that? And as they go in, they realize this is not about climbing 3,000 feet with no rope on. This is actually just a very good workout, and it's very intuitive and it's very characteristic. So knowing all that, I started looking at the tech, and I realized that it's not really what I would want to use as a climber by myself. Um, I got injured at the gym. I had a finger injury, which is very common for rock climbers, and I realized I'm not tracking my training at all. And I just moved, so I have no community here. I come here 3 days a week, and I feel like I got nothing going on in terms of knowing where I am as a climber and knowing other climbers. So that was the inception of the idea.
No, that's awesome. Actually, just to riff on the strangeness of getting into rock climbing, when I got into rock, like I don't really rock climb, but it was because the very first time was like such a strange experience. I went with a scouting group, and the leader that took us, he was a short dude, like he was pretty little, and I was already like in like my youth already bigger than him. So he didn't have any climbing shoes that I could wear, where like all the other kids were like kind of slipping on a few of his like old climbing shoes, whatever.
Hmm.
And he's like, you'll have better grip. And he was an instructor, like he did ice climbing instruction, like he's very talented at what he did, but he's like, you'll have better grip if you go barefoot. And so I was like, all right. And I just was wearing, just some like chunky basketball shoes that was gonna like making it tough. And he's like, here, try just barefoot. And so I go barefoot, and it was easier barefoot. Like I was able to climb and scale, but I had like blood dripping off the bottom of my feet going down the wall. And I was just like, I mean, it was cool, but it was super hard. It was kind of scary. And my feet obviously were wrecked afterwards. So I was like, this isn't exactly my thing. So you're absolutely right. So I guess how does Cling help you meet other climbers or kind of get started in rock climbing in a way that's more more friendly of an introduction than climbing a wall at Scouts with barefoot?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the basic things we're doing is we're focusing only on indoor climbing gyms. One thing to know about rock climbing is outdoor climbing is very weird, very different. There's a whole set of problems that you face that you need maybe tooling for or gear for. Um, like if you're climbing a desert tower that's 2,000 feet long, you're going to need a different set of gear than when you're climbing a 10-foot wall in your gym. Um, when you go to your gym, you don't need route finding. You don't need to know what kind of gear to bring, stuff like that. Once you learn it in one gym, it's the same replicatable experience across. Um, we also found that a lot of climbers are so dedicated to their gyms. They go there 3 days a week to climb, and a lot of them will go more days a week to cross train, to go run on the treadmill or to lift weights so that they get better at climbing. And you start building these friendships that are so close because you're literally holding their life in your hands. Sometimes that you get very intertwined, and it's how I like to describe it is it's college for people who are out of college or who don't go to college. It's this tight-knit friend circle that just exists regardless of age. I hang out with people in their 50s quite often. I hang out with people who in their early 20s, and I'm 30 years old. And we all have very relatable things to talk about. So it's a very obsessive sport. You don't see a lot of people who love soccer abandoning their lives, moving into vans and living in a certain location. So we realized, like, there's really good tooling for outdoor climbers. At least it's functional and usable, but there's no equivalent for indoor spaces. People are using subreddits to find partners at their local gyms. People are using Facebook groups, all sorts of things. So what Cling does differently is it tries to blast radius you to your local gym. Mainly the experiences people climbing routes or want to know or can or have the ability to go to fairly quickly. You have your tracking and training, basic tooling for rock climbers, because again, it's a very strange sport. There's a lot to learn. The ease of tooling is key when it comes to this. And then for a lot of newer folks, what we're recently launching now is very basic tutorials to do very basic rock climbing, an intro class essentially, and that's available for free for whoever wants it. What it tells you is, hey, how do you place your feet when you're climbing to optimize your foot positions? How do you hold your hands out so that you don't fall off the wall or get tired within 10 feet? And so you can keep climbing. We feel like there is a moment in every new climber's journey that they decide, I'm going to stick with this, I'm going to get a membership, and I'm going to buy shoes. Or they say, you know what, this is too hard for me. I don't think I'm fit for this. I don't think this is my cup of tea. What we don't want is that it's the lack of information to inhibit that decision. What we would like is to increase the tooling so people can make that decisions after they've had access to try it out.
Okay, that's really cool. And is that where you guys started, or how did you get to that point? Because originally, and you kind of mentioned this already, but I know this from some historical knowledge, but it was very much about just like tracking your workouts, tracking your climbs, and making sure you have that data. How did you get to the point where, or is that a focus of yours right now, is to work with new people coming into rock climbing so that they can feel like they know what to do, they know how to do it? Because that's, I mean, I'm not in this world as much,
Mhm.
but it's not something that I see very often in terms of like tutorials on, masterclass, for example. Like they have one for basketball and tennis and lots of different things, but I don't remember there being like a rock climbing one of like just basics on how to rock climb. It's always and even when I've done indoor gyms, it's almost always been, hey, like, yeah, I got this rope. Don't worry, you won't fall. Just kind of climb on up there
Yeah,
and like you'll figure it out. But there's obviously got to be a lot of technique that goes into actually making it happen.
yeah.
So how did you go from like strictly we're talking about data, it would like just that iteration process to, hey, we're focused on, and maybe it's not your focus, but we're focused on helping newcomers to rock climbing at indoor gyms know how to rock climb, and then we'll be there for them to track their data once they turn into like rock climbers.
Yeah. I I started on tracking and training about 2 years ago because I'm a data nerd and I like to know everything about what I'm doing and I like to see analytics on it. What I found out was not everybody cares this much. That's fair. But they care about other things. They care about accessing their local community. And hey, I do too. Sometimes I want partners to climb with. Some days I just want to put headphones in and do some bouldering without ropes, shorter walls with no ropes, no partner. Um, I built features for that. And then we did some market testing on that and realized, this is okay, this is cool, this is some tooling, but it's still not striking the chord where it needs to. There's a large part of the market that we're ignoring is newer climbers. And this has all been very recent too. And every time we come up with something like this, we ask ourselves, is this in line with our mission statement? Is this what we want to do? Is this still going in the direction of building a training community for rock climbers, much like Strava has built one for bicyclists and runners and stuff like that? And that's kind of the evolution on a very high level. So now a focus will be to satisfy newer climbers, give them what they want, not what we think they want. And then we can build on more advanced tooling as we go forward. This decision also came from seeing what other products in the market are doing. A lot of them are catering to established climbers, hard climbers, very strong people. And that's the glam of sports tech in general. That's the glam of sports in general, is the top athletes are always the coolest people. And that's totally fair, but climbing's weird. It's very unique. When you come in, you have to learn a whole dictionary of terms. That's like what is a crimp, what is a jug, what is a heel hook. These are not very intuitive words, but to a rock climber who's been climbing for 6 months or 1 year, all this is basic knowledge. Sometimes we speak in sentences that someone cannot even understand who's standing next to us and doesn't climb. So it's very alienating. So we're trying to get someone who's coming in the third time to the gym, to the fourth time to a rock climbing gym, still deciding whether they're going to make it. We're trying to help those people first. And as that generation builds, so will we build for our product to satisfy people that are looking for this kind of tooling, whether it's social, whether it's training, whether it's any kind of guide or learning um, tutorial.
That's awesome. So I know you have a technical background, so you can build apps whenever you want. You can kind of do your own thing. Not everyone has that luxury when they're starting a new product or a new company. What would you say has been kind of critical or pivotal in making partnerships with people? Because like you can't do it all, or maybe you are doing almost everything where you're like, hey, I'm doing the coding and I'm doing the networking and the business. But I guess what have you made any critical partnerships throughout this experience?
Yeah, I have a really good co-founder now who's amazing and handles a lot of the business side of things, a lot of the UX research side of things. We've made a very, very cool partnership with the industry, with a company called Kilter. We're working with them on a lot of stuff, mainly training focused, and we've launched, controlled launched at gyms. Um, Again, this all came from a bunch of right place, right time, a community for every, I think I emailed 30 people, 30 entrepreneurs at some point, and I think 2 or 4 of them got back to me. And out of that came something really interesting. And they didn't have to be in my industry or help me directly. It was more just like, hey, I'm working on this, and you really succeeded at what you've built in this space, or building the same thing for another market. And I just say, hey, can I talk to you? Can I just ask you a couple of questions? And most people didn't respond, but of the ones that did, it became a lot more enlightening for me. And they were happy to extend a hand out and just, we're just talking. They're just telling me what they did. And out of that came the partnership that we built. Um, we launched at a couple gyms as a test, and one of them is my gym. I walked up to them and I said, hey, look, this thing's not doesn't seem to be working for you. If you care about this, I'm building something. And they were like, yeah, we need tool X and tool Y. And I said, okay, I think I can build that. So I like go back and I think about it. I build a prototype and I go to them and they give me feedback. And with a few feedback loops, it works. So it was a very iterative process, is basically the short answer. A lot of trying, a lot of no responses, shut doors, and a little traction that ended up becoming meaningful.
That's cool. So one strategic partnership is your gym, where you have that conversation. One thing that I think might be really interesting for the listeners of this show is diving in a little bit more into what you were looking for in a co-founder from the business like product side, because you're already like you have the technical side, and a lot of times I talk to aspiring entrepreneurs or people trying to build products that are like, I have this idea, I really want to build this, but they don't have the technical side. So they're often looking for a CTO or someone that can come and be a technical co-founder. But the interesting part of this conversation that I think is really cool is you are an entrepreneurial, like creative, technical person, and you're like, hey, I need a co-founder on the business side. So what were you looking for specifically? Obviously, it's like you want to find someone who's interested in the project that you want to take on, but what other like characteristics were you interested in to be able to say, this is what I want from the technical side. This is what I'm looking for. That way, people that want to start something can start looking for technical founders and see if they can offer them up help.
Yeah, I'll give you a very detailed answer here. I started Cling with a friend of mine who, for many reasons, had to leave quickly. So I was solo founding for a while and trying to get momentum going. And I realized, I can't look for a non-technical founder in my case, with industry skills and then teach them rock climbing. I needed someone with rock climbing who was interested in learning the professional skills it would take to get this going. So that was from day one, my strategy is to like, hey, find a climber who can be a founder, or who wants to be a founder, and then we'll see where things go. And I spent a lot of time. I was going to gyms in New York City, and I was putting up flyers that said, hey, looking for a co-founder with the logo on it, and like the contact information. I had a couple people interested. They reached out. Some were looking for jobs, but I was looking for a founder. Some were interested but didn't know what skills they were bringing. So it was a hard interview process, as I call it, and very passive. You didn't know who or when you were going to get a hit. But one of the partnerships I built in the industry, my current co-founder contacted them, just another email and just shot in the dark he had thrown, saying, hey, if you want any UX help, I'm interested in helping you out. And they just forwarded him to me. And we met, we talked. I told him, look, I can't do this by myself. I'm coding all day. I go into meetings and my head is fried. And he was like, okay. And within a week, he had done UX research without asking me on my product. And he came back and he was like, this is wrong with it. That's wrong with it. This is an easy fix. This is what you should do. This is why. And I was like, hey, this is a great fit. And so slowly it's been brewing. And recently we launched with an idea that he had in a conference last week. And it was, I would say, a pretty big success, which is very exciting. So that's, I can only derive from my experience of not trying to teach someone the market. Just pick someone who knows the market and who can learn all the other skills. Because filing taxes is a skill anybody can learn, but rock climbing is not a skill everybody wants to learn. I also used Y Combinator's partner match just to see what's happening, and I found a lot of people with rock climbing listed as their hobbies. And I would be like, yeah, cool, maybe this person sounds really smart. And I would just not get any calls back, any texts back, nothing. So it's a very rejection-filled process, just like everything else.
Mm-hmm. Hey, well, you know what you reminded me of when you said you were a solo founder for a while. At the same time, I had a job, but I was also building my own app. And there was a lot of feels that you and I both had when we were in the very earliest stages of being like kind of solo founders. And I would love to hear, like, I know we've had a bunch of phone calls. I remember one time I was in Florida, like on vacation, like sitting on a dock, and then we were just chatting, and it was just like, it's hard. And I would love to just hear some more thoughts about being a solo founder and kind of the ups and the downs. And then from there, if you have any advice for someone who is a solo founder or just a founder in general.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty hard on myself usually, and it's not to my benefit. And as a solo founder, that was probably the biggest characteristic to keep in check at all times, because you're getting rejected all the time. You're getting rejected every day by everyone. In my case, as a software engineer, I thought I had a hunch for the product, so I built it myself. And then when I would go and show it to people, I would not get the reception I wanted. So for every 10 people I'd show it to, 8 of them were not interested, but 2 of them would be interested and they'd continue to use my product. And in those days when 8 out of 10 were misses, it was a very hard um, mental state to maintain day after day, especially when it comes month after month, and then you're like, hey, I thought by now I would have seen something. I should be succeeding a little bit more, right? Should I give up? So I think persistence was really what I got through that period with. There's a lot of factors to determine whether we are a success in the future. But even getting to this point has been just raw stubbornness and persistence, and saying every time I remind myself, yeah, this hurts, this feels bad. That was a rejection that I didn't expect at the level I didn't expect. But this is where a normal person would quit. This is where a regular person would say, you know what, why am I doing this to myself? And you just keep going.
It's brutal. You just keep going. Yeah, no, it's true. And I've seen you like fight through it. And one thing that I really admire about you is you ended up leaving your full-time gig to go pursue this, like just this, which that was definitely a separation or differentiator between both of us, because we were both working on a product. We very early stage we both thought our products were cool, and trying to get buy-in from other people that don't necessarily see how cool or not cool our product is. And then I kind of stayed at my job and treated my side project as a side project, and you've gone straight into this head on. I'd love to know more about how you made that decision to like take this head on, and how you, I guess, budgeted or got your finances right so you could take this head on. And um, yeah, just kind of your mental state of how you're able to go and make that decision.
Yeah, I had been acting pretty frugally for a couple of years at that point. I quit my job last year, February 2022. And I had been saving up for like 3 or 4 years. I had worked in tech. I had the fortune to have some disposable income. And, I had choices in front of me. I could have invested that in a house, or at least a down payment or something like that. But I kept thinking, yeah, but what am I doing day to day? And so it was a crazy move. I don't think I'd say I was right or wrong. It just was a crazy move to quit your job and do this. I was working all day, and then I'd work on this in my evenings and my mornings. And I thought, you know what, maybe if I just do this for a little bit, I'll have my evenings and mornings back. And then I found out that I'm kind of a workaholic, and I just kept working all the time. Um, yeah, it's a very big decision, and I don't think I felt like I was in the right when I was doing it. I just thought, you know what, let's just try it, whatever. Like, if someone thinks this is a crazy move and doesn't believe in it, and this is a friend or family, you just go, can't convince everyone, right? Like, but in the end of the day, you're the one that takes that leap and finds out whether it's gonna work or not. Everybody has theories. That's what I realized by the end. Like, the people are just guessing. They don't really know, and you're the one trying to figure out whether that guess is right or wrong. And it goes back to your question about co-founders too. Like, asking someone else to do that on your idea is really, whether you're a technical or non-technical founder, is such a huge ask. And I realized that as soon as I did that, I was like, man, I'm asking people to commit their lives to this, which made the search a long one. Like, it took months, and it took almost a year to feel like, hey, we're two of us, we're a team. It's all systems go.
Did you give yourself a time frame to be able to say, like, I'm going to give myself 6 months or 2 years, and if I haven't generated revenue or X amount of revenue by that time, or I don't see a significant something like some key metrics moving, then I'm going to, you know, try something else.
Yeah, for sure. I had initially given myself 6 months, because that would have been about 40 or 50% of the savings I estimated would last me about 6 months of not having a job. And then at that 6 month mark, um, my wife was like, "Hey, are you done with this? What are you gonna do now?" And I remember, because I just landed this first gym partnership, the first client, and I was like, I can't quit now. Like, I know it's not where I wanted it to be or whatever, but what did I know? Like, the hard rail that I put in there, the stopgap, it didn't make any sense at that point. It was like, hey, this is moving. So can I suffer a bit more? Can I just keep going and be a little smarter about things? I'd say I'm still in that phase, quite a bit. Everything is always a trade-off, which feels fine now. It feels more like I've understood this new mentality rather than, hey, I suffer for 6 months and then I expect all these riches. It's more like I'm understanding how to build a product. I'm understanding how to think about things. And every day I spend in this game, I get better at it, whether or not moment to moment I realize.
Mhm. Yeah, dang. So you gave yourself a 6 month time frame. You land a client, and obviously that client can't pay your bills. They can just pay for the software. You're kind of like, okay. Since then, and I know you've expanded into more gyms, and you've kind of you mentioned that you had a strategic partnership with another brand. Tell me a little bit about that. How you found that partner and what that partnership looks like.
Yeah, they are a big player in the space.
What are they called again?
Oh yeah, we're partnered with a company called Kilter.
Kilter.
Um,
Okay.
Even though rock climbing is a smaller market, these guys are big players in this market. They've had a successful product out there in the tech space. Um, it's more of a proof of concept. I'm sorry, like a tool. It's an app that they have that is quite popular with a lot of strong climbers, and they're very big on climbing holds as well. They manufacture a lot of climbing holds that get sold to a lot of places around the world. So yeah, I sent them an email and I was like, hey, you want to work on stuff? And they had been already considering some of these things, so they reached out to me, and now it's we're hoping to launch some stuff in the next year, and it's a long time frame. That is going to be quite interesting to the rock climbing market. I can't speak about everything, but we are very much looking forward to some critical pieces of the puzzle for us. And as a climber, it's going to be exciting. Not as a business person or founder or something. As a rock climber, I'm going to be super stoked on this product.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And then from there though, that gives you a lot of legitimacy and credibility working with a big player in the rock climbing space.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. The people that work in the space know that name, know the brand, and it definitely adds to the legitimacy. Um, Even with that, I would like to still for build assuming that there's no name yet, there's no recognition. It's always I like to adopt the mentality of I'm always on ground zero, at least at this point.
Yeah. Dang. Well, that is I guess where does that mentality come from? Like how do you start? Like how do you stay in that type of mind frame?
Um, Good question. So, since I'm the engineering co-founder, a lot of my priority is building immediate features, improving things, and a lot of my day is how do I keep this everything stable, everything running, fix all the bugs, and then keep thinking about the next product, how to implement the next product idea. And this is where having a co-founder has been really instrumental because my co-founder has the ability to look a little past these things and look at the business value of what we're building and say, like in 3 months, this is coming up, but in 9 months, this is where the business should be. And that's going to have more value than counting all the numbers coming in and all the numbers going out as for right now. Um, as long as we keep building really valuable things and testing it in the market, we feel good that eventually we will find success.
Yeah. So I know we mentioned this beforehand a little bit before the recording started, but uh, tell me, you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I'd just love to hear a little bit about your experience there and any advice that you have for potentially a founder that is starting a new company or even someone that's a brand new product manager. I know I had a little bit of imposter syndrome when I went from say like our very very small startup to running a proper product team at AccuWeather. It felt like it's debatable how how aligned everything is there when you're like running and working on a very, very small team and a very, very small product to like stepping into a high functioning team, high dollar amounts. And I had to definitely get over a hump there. So I guess what are your thoughts on that?
Um, sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, no,
Let
I'm
me
basically
figure
just
it.
trying to figure out like um you've mentioned that you've had imposter syndrome. I'd
Oh,
love
yeah.
to like hear a little bit about that. And then any advice that you have for somebody that is experiencing imposter syndrome, whether they're a founder or like they're fresh into like the product space or like maybe they're a new product leader.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. You know, everybody gets lucky. Every entrepreneur out there that's successful has gotten lucky. They are definitely smart. They are definitely capable people, but there is that factor of luck. And in that, when you think about it in those terms, anybody can do anything. And I've heard statistics that even the biggest of Silicon Valley tech giants, the people that lead those companies feel like imposters in front of a crowd of themselves. So that gives me some comfort. But yeah, for when I quit my job, I quit a software engineering job, and I had some experience building product. I had some experience designing things, but I always felt weird about saying founder or CTO, which is still hilarious to me, because we're just a two-person team. Um, yeah, you need to give yourself those inflated values to maybe get in the door, maybe do all this. But as long as you're humble about the fact that you're just title inflating yourself and you don't walk into a room with the ego that that title you think should bring, it's been fairly successful in doing all the things that I want to do. Um, I still feel it. I still, even for climbing, I've been climbing for the better part of the last decade, and I don't feel like I can go up to very strong climbers and be like, yeah, I'm a climber, I'm a rock climber. Because the level at which they are operating on is just so much larger than mine. Um, people like Alex Honnold, the things they're doing like without ropes, with ropes, the difficulty of rock they're scaling up is incredible. And I consider myself very average. It's just time and effort. Just put more time and effort into whatever you're doing. At some point, you have to find some success.
Yeah, and I guess with that, I think that your support group matters a lot. Like the people in your personal life, whether it's like your parents, a wife, friends, they can, either kind of pull you down and drag you down, or, they can support you and kind of be there for you. And I imagine that was like a big, big thing you had to work through with your wife of, hey, I'm going to quit my full-time job and go and like just chase my dream and do what I want to do. And that's gonna, I mean, it's gonna be a huge financial hit to us in the short term, and who knows if it can pay out or not. I would love to know like, what does your support group look like, and what does it take to be able to operate at the level that you're operating in terms of just having people that you can call when you're stoked, or you can call when you're having like the worst of days.
Yeah, my wife is definitely super supportive. She's um she's a very strong woman herself. She always just believes in gritting your teeth and getting the job done. So it's a little intimidating at times, but it's a very strong, at least she is stable. As I go through my ups and downs, I can always rely on her and say, like, look, this crazy thing happened. I'm like feeling horrible about this. And she'll go, it's fine, don't overthink it. Or, she has on the other side, she's like, great, you're doing great, just keep going. Um, just rationalize yourself a little bit when you're feeling at the extreme end. Um, I have friends that have started startups. That has been quite a relief to hear from them about how much they struggled. I have friends who started startups that no longer exist. So even hearing through that and the normalization that, if you fail, it's okay. Like if your startup fails, you didn't fail, or even if you do fail as a startup, it's okay. Like in tech, we have a really amazing privilege of failing upwards, where you try something and you understand how hard it is to do, and maybe other employers, at the worst case, when you go out and find a job, they'll trust you more. They'll actually understand that you understand a little bit more than someone who's never tried to do this. And friends who have nothing to do with being an entrepreneur, starting a tech company, none of that. I have friends in civil engineering and architecture, and they're still supportive. I'll go tell them how brutal it is at times, and they'll be like, "That's crazy, but this is kind of cool, right? What you're doing, like this is not, you're the one with the career with stories in it, so that there's some value that everything brings you." And yeah, friends, family have been largely supportive, whether or not they're in tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. Yeah, I think you're lucky, and like I feel the same way. But we're both lucky to have a support group, because I think that there's some people out there that are just it's hard to come by people that I think a lot of people say, yeah, man, like I want your thing to succeed or whatever, but they're not like there for it, and no one experiences the ups and the downs like you do. So that's it's kind of like no one else can understand and know it how you know it, but having people that really try and empathize and like get in the weeds down there with you is like it's super huge. Another story that I remember that you told me about, I don't know, I think we were at lunch one time, but it was about how you were networking with other founders and reaching
Mhm.
out to them. And I
Yep.
thought it was so cool. And I would love for you to just share a little bit about how you were networking, how you're reaching out to other founders, and like kind of your success there.
Yeah, I when I started out, I knew nothing. I came from software engineering, and I knew nothing about how to approach a business, start a business. Software engineers are prone to thinking that building a tech product will gain market traction, and you find out very brutally as soon as you start actually trying that this is not the case. There are many, many more things you need to consider. So I just started reaching out to people who had done similar things, like Strava. In my case, I was like, what's adjacent to rock climbing? What's in rock climbing? And so I just email founders and see if like I can go talk to any of them directly if they exist somewhere. And I emailed the CEOs of a bunch of companies that were established, and a few of them got back to me, and I'm as surprised they got back to me today as I was back then, because I didn't even feel like they would pick it up. And in a lot of cases, it's very easy to email founders because it's just whatever product they have.com and their first name. So it's first name at product.com. And so it turned out to be fairly simple. The barrier of entry is quite low. You just have to make sure the volume is high so that the people who have the most interest and the time currently follow up with you. And if they don't, send them a follow-up email in a couple of weeks. See if, you know, you can add email tracking. Like there are sales tools out there that will put email tracking in your emails, and you'll be able to know if they opened your email or not. And you know that if they're not opening your email, then that's a worse probability that they're actually gonna reach out to you. But yeah, it was a strategy that worked because they'd been through it. They'd been through it, and they sometimes are on the other side, and they're like, do it. They're the ones that will tell you, go do it. Take the plunge. This is the best thing you can do, even if you fail, which was amazing to me because I felt like in a lot of those cases, they should have said, like, you're not ready enough. You don't know what you're doing, and you should think about this a little bit more. That's what everyone else would say to you, but a founder is going to tell you, yeah, go crazy, just take it, see what happens. And that was very encouraging to me, that um, big founders of big companies and even small startups, Y Combinator startups, all were just so encouraging.
Yeah. That's huge, man. I remember you telling me about that, and that stuck with me. I was like, first off, I can't believe that it worked, and that you were able to make like legitimate connections, because you always think, like, you always know, like, the founders and CEOs are in meetings constantly. Like, I've worked directly with a handful, and they're constantly in meetings, they're constantly handling a million things, but they also, like, you do hear random stories about them talking to this person or that person, and it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for you. I guess it could work for whoever's willing to put in the work to, like, write the email and shoot out 100 emails in hopes that you get to meet with like 2 to 5 cool founders.
Yeah, I think the important thing there was what I found was, they're seeing what I'm seeing sometimes. If you, I, both of you sometimes have identified the problem or can relate to the problem that you're reaching out about. They might be interested in seeing whether you're the person for the job. They might invest in your company down the line as an angel founder, sorry, angel investor. So I found out that they have a lot of incentive to respond to stuff like this, as long as it's short, to the point, and seems competent. They're intrigued. And again, I emailed about 30 or 50 people and I got about 2 to 4 catches on that. And people told me that's a good response rate. So it's just volume.
Yeah. Dang. No, that's so cool. I love that story. What about, I know you kind of mentioned user testing from reaching out to your gym very early on. And it was like, you go to the gym, iterate, whatever. How have you, or like, what are you doing now to continually user test and get the product in front of the market and know what you want to do next?
So full disclosure, I'm not the complete authority on this, because my co-founder has a UX research background. A lot of our user testing now goes through him. What I would do is I would have like I'd use MailChimp to reach out when somebody registered on the product with an email, and then a week later I'd ask for feedback. In my experience, those feedback emails are very hard. Like nobody responds to them. Sometimes you get a response, but it's way too low volume. So I just go up to people that are using it, or I say, hey, check this out, give me feedback, something like that. Again, not in those words. I read a book called The Mom Test that was really, really good to understand how to approach users, how to avoid having false positives. In a lot of cases, users, when you ask them, hey, would you like this idea, this feature? They'd say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you go into 2 months of development. And when you come out, they're like, yeah, but I don't know. Or they use it for 30 seconds and they're like, cool. It's very low value. And those are really risky traps to fall into.
Yeah.
And I fell into a bunch of them. And I think that's how you learn not to fall into them. But then again, I think in our company right now, my co-founder and I both split half a product manager's job. He does the market testing, and I do the UI, like the more. I do what the experience should feel like, but he identifies what the experience should be, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah. And I know you recommended the mom test to me, and I read that, and it was so good because it puts very, like, in very simple terms, you realize, like, even though you know not to lead people in user testing, you realize, like, how you've been leading people, even though you thought maybe you weren't leading people into specific thoughts or answers. And honestly, I feel like that's a read that people should be doing, like, once a year, at least once a year, of like keeping it fresh. Because now I'm thinking about it, I think you recommended that to me probably a year ago, and I would love to do a refresher myself. I'm like, I got to jump back in because I just did the audio version, and it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I'm due for a refresher as well.
Hey, on that note, I know we didn't mention this beforehand, but what are like some top books that you recommend outside of the mom test?
Oh man.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, this is an answer that's totally wild for me because I've just been reading explorer books. I just have fun with it. Again, I'm a tech founder. I spend all day in front of screens, so I figured I'd just pay for Audible at this point. as long as I'm consuming the information in one form or another, I'll go out for a run and I'll just put an audiobook on. I'm having fun with my books. I'm reading The Lost City of Z right now, which is about explorers trying to find El Dorado in the Amazon.
Yeah.
And it is an incredible read of bravery and courage. And I think that helps with my career a little bit because it's like I'm not doing anything that courageous. I'm not in 20th century Europe going, you know what, I'm going to walk into the Amazon rainforest, into uncharted territories to find the borders of these countries. That stuff is wild. I've also read The Lost City of the Monkey God, which is what got me to The Lost City of Z. And The Lost City of the Monkey God is about finding a lost city that is legendary in Honduras. And this was in 2012, I think, by archaeologists. So it's as close to Indiana Jones can get to reality. It is a wild story of just courage and doing something crazy and out there, and how in the end, they find these places and the response that the world has to something so valuable. And it's amazing for me to read these stories and when I'm taking a break from work.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. That's awesome. I was going to just kind of wrap it up with any final thoughts you have. But really, I would love to just be able to send people that are interested in rock climbing, let them know how to be able to find Cling and where to look for you guys.
Yeah, we are registered at cling-app.com. Um, we're on the iOS App Store. We are launching an Android in about 2 weeks, if all goes well.
I'll add a link here
Oh,
too, just to the App Store. So if people are like watching on YouTube or whatever, they can just click straight there.
thank you. Yeah, my we're a very small team, so we're super approachable. If anybody has any questions as a rock climber or any startup questions, we're always open to answering those questions. Um, yeah, we have a lot to do up ahead. So I think it's exciting to be able to look out in the future now and see so much potential.
Hmm. Yeah, so cool, man. I've loved following your journey. Honestly, it's been like so exciting getting like every 6 months we usually connect about something. So congratulations on getting this far. And thank you so much for taking an hour or so to hop on the show today.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing.